In this video, we're going to be going over how to do the tassel flowers. We'll do 2 tassel flowers. I'll give you some troubleshooting tips and exactly how to do them. Let's get started. First things first, you're going to want to get the color of the tassel and the color of the tassel inside. It might be the same color if you're just doing a tassel, or if you're doing a flower, it's going to be the green or the stem color. So I've got both of them. Now I'm going to take the number of strands that I need for the green, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it off, and I'm going to go ahead and thread the needle. So I usually just wet it a few moments in my mouth, thread it through, and then I'll do a knot on the other side. I know it seems a little counterintuitive. You would think you would be threading the color of the flower, but we won't be doing that. So, okay, got my green. Next, I've got my pink. I keep mine on these little bobbins, but yours is probably in a still in the skein. So each of the patterns is going to tell you how many times to wrap around your fingers. So here's what I do. Take my first 2 fingers, I wrap it around. So let's say for this one, we're gonna do 5. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now I'm just gonna cut it pretty close to where the original line is. Okay, now we're all prepped. This flower is really fun, and this stitch is really fun, but it does take a little bit of getting used to. Okay, now I'm realizing I didn't draw anything on this, but that's okay. Okay, so I've got this in my hand. I'm holding it just like this. I should have showed you how I did that. Okay, so it was a circle, and I just squished it. So you don't have to worry too much about whether the little tails of either end are over or not. So just squishing it flat, and I'm coming through. This would be at the bottom of the flower if you like for your pattern. I'm gonna just lay this right here. Now I'm gonna put another stitch directly above it, like that, in the middle, as close as I can. You can always adjust it a little bit. Then I'm gonna pull it through. So now it's anchored. That's step 1. Now you're gonna take both the pieces, pull them up, or pull them whichever direction they need to go. Then you're gonna try to keep them close together. You're gonna take your needle, go over to the side, pretty much where this line is, this stitch, because if you don't put the stitch, let me find one, okay, here's one. Okay, if you don't put the stitch too high, one of the things you could have, this was a draft that I ended up not photographing, is see how this tassel is kind of spread out? It's because I didn't go far enough up on the side stitches. So I'll show you that. Okay, so we're going over this side, and then we're just going over this side. Now you do not want to pull it too tight because you don't want it to kind of have a big mark right there. You want it to kind of be even along the side. So as I can tell, I already, and see, we can pull it a little bitty bit just to get it kind of more where you want it to be. Okay, there we go. So pulling that a little bit tighter. Then we're just making the stem of this flower. So we're going to keep going over, and I've got a little piece that looks like of the tail in there, and over. Looks like that piece is still in there, but it's okay. And then sometimes I go the same way. Sometimes if I'm like running a little bit short on thread, or I just don't want to use as much, I go the opposite way. Goodness, I'm having some trouble. There. This is definitely, especially the first part, is definitely a stitch where you want to have something you can kind of put your hoop on. Usually I just put mine on a pillow, or I put mine on a counter, or wherever I'm stitching, because I don't normally stitch in a hoop stand unless I'm doing these videos. So we're gonna go all the way down, And I'm also going to do one more of these to show you again, okay? So if you're like, I missed that part, don't worry, we'll go through the whole thing, then you'll get a good idea, and then we'll do another one. Now, one of the cool things about this particular stitch is that you could, if you wanted to, leave them untrimmed. I'm not going to do that in this one. Well, I'll show you what to do if you want to leave it untrimmed to make it look a little bit neater. Okay, so we've covered up the whole bottom. It's not flailing out at the top, which is how we know we went up enough. Now we're gonna trim. Got my little scissors. So first, if you didn't want to have it be like a tassel look and you just wanted to have the curved edges, I would just fluff it down a little bit like that. And then I would cut off the tails just behind the stitches. So I would cut them off like that. And honestly, I really like this. I almost did this at this pattern, but I decided to go for the tassels. So you just fluff it out. It's cute. I'll move it down a little bit so you can see better. There. It's cute, but if you want to trim it, which most of the patterns that I've done now call for this, I might have one in the future that doesn't. You just take the edges, trim it off, lay it flat, see if you like what it looks like. There's like these few pieces there. And you just fluff it up. And that's how you do it. So I'm going to choose a different color and I'm going to show it to you again. All right, this time we're going to use the same green because I've already got it threaded. This time we're going to use yellow. So I've got yellow in my bobbin. Pull back up. There we go. So I'm just finding the edge. There we go. Okay. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And I always try, if I'm using the bobbin, I always try to wrap it back up, stick it in the side so it doesn't get tangled. Okay, I've got the yellow. So, squish gently. There we go. And then let's go down here. I have a few more videos for this round that I need to record for new stuff. New stitches. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in. All right, so we got the flower. I'm going to go over. Okay, so it's going to look like this. Then you pull it up. And you only have to hold it up for the first stitch, really. So, let me get that on. That's really zoomed in on my hands. Try to move them out of the way as quickly as possible. There. Okay, I'll move it up just a little bit. Just so you're not getting, you know, just my hands. Yeah, there, angle it. Okay. So, now we're just going over the bottom. The other tricky thing with doing these videos is sometimes I actually put the camera in front of where I can see. So it makes it hard to record because I can't, like, I'm stitching by looking at the video, which is just kind of funny. So, again, I'm not pulling too tight because I want it to be like this one up here. I don't want it to be like really squished and then huge. So I'm not pulling it too tight. I'm just being gentle, going over and over, just trying to fill in all of the flower color at the bottom. Again, you want to make sure that the top line goes above, a little above this stitch right here. If you do it and you finish and you're like, oh, it's kind of flayed out, and you don't, if you like the look, then just leave it. If you don't like the look, then you can just go back and add a stitch. It's a little trickier if you've already cut it, but it's also very easy to remove this stitch and start again. French knots can be a little bit tricky to remove, but this stitch is relatively easy because these pieces aren't even stitched down at all. Like, they're only held up by the green. So if you need to remove them, you can. Okay. This will probably be the last stitch of this. if you decide you want to leave it, well, this will be a good to show you how the difference between these two. So if you decide you want to leave it like just rounded and fluffy like this, which you totally can, just cut off any of the tails that are kind of sticking out. And this one is only this one, so I'm going to cut it carefully. And that kind of gives you the different look. So we've got the little loops and we've got the trimmed. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this one again just to show you what it looks like. But another thing that you want to always be doing is making sure your fabric is tight. If you see any of those kind of divots or lines, you want to make sure to remove those. But by just pulling your fabric a little bit tighter. Okay, so you grab it all, put your scissors in, and just cut. And I missed some of it, but that's okay. There. And just fluff, fluff, fluff. This side actually looks a little weird. If you see a piece and you're like, that piece just looks weird, you can always just cut it off. It's not a big deal. There. So this is how you do the tassel flower.